Prior to the digital age, we had a lot of words, but not nearly as many as we have now. And the fact that we can scrape those words and house those words and move those words and repurpose those words suddenly makes for a brand new condition in literature, which has fallen under the rubric of conceptual writing. Now, we've had this situation in conceptual art, but imagine putting that on literature and creating a whole oeuvre of works that are not meant to be read, books that are not really meant to be read, specifically with that agenda. The difference between modernist work and conceptual work is that most people can understand everything. You might not understand why, but you actually understand the words. We're not breaking language apart. We're not shattering language. That had already been done. We're not making language abstract. We're actually picking up language as a whole and moving it from one place to another in ways that are syntactically and grammatically intact. It happens when you have too much data, the situation that we're in now. You can't read the internet, of course, but you can think about the internet. You can think about size and scale. It's about magnitude of language. Much of my own poetic practice is involved with the materialization and concretization of language around us. I did a book called Soliloquy, which was every word I spoke for a week, from the moment I woke up on a Monday morning to the moment I went to sleep on a Sunday night. It turned out to be a 600-page book. I talk a lot, most of it completely useless. When I transcribed a day's copy of the New York Times, you can't imagine this piece of crap that at the time sold for 50 cents would actually materialize into a 900-page book. But now I'm interested in harvesting stuff that's coming from the web and materializing it in the same way that I did retype the newspaper. Printing out the internet was a curatorial project of mine. It was an authored project. I was actually the curator of that. And I do a lot of curatorial work. UbuWeb is an 18-year curatorial project. And I thought to myself, well, let's crowdsource the first ever printing of the entire internet. We ended up with 10 tons of paper, and I think we got most of the internet printed last summer in Mexico. We missed some of it, but we got most of it. We have no idea the amount of information that we're swimming in. And I wanted to make a materialization, these materializations of those figures, those numbers, that magnitude. I think it's very important how I make my way through this thicket of information identifies my writing as being different than the way you make your way through this thicket of information. It really is like bushwhacking in the digital age.
Welcome to the White House. I am going to be brief, because on a night like tonight, my job is to get out of the way and let the professionals do their job.
For my set, I decided I would focus on an American icon, the Brooklyn Bridge. And I read 3 short excerpts from 3 different works, one by Walt Whitman called Crossing Brooklyn Ferry.
Flood tide below me, I watch you face to face. Clouds of the west, sun there, half an hour high. I also see you face to face. Crowds of men and women attired in the usual costumes. How curious you are to me.
I read an excerpt from Hart Crane's poem about the Brooklyn Bridge, which is a fractured modernist poem on the bridge.
Again the traffic lights that skim thy swift, unfractioned idiom, immaculate sigh of stars, beating thy path condense eternity.
And then I read an excerpt from my own book called Traffic. I read the first 2 poems, the Crane and the Whitman. The audience was very polite. But when I began reading traffic reports, the room perked up.
Remember how bad it was yesterday? It's starting all over again. The east side delays begin at the Triborough. It's pretty much one long line now all the way to the Battery. The west side delays to the Battery. Looking back at the boat basin at 79th Street, we've got a ton of interior traffic in Midtown. 7th Avenue, Times Square, that's the delay. That's where it's all going. It's coming out of Central Park. Broadway and 8th Avenue are going to be impacted by that. On the east side, the side streets are packed through the 40s and 50s, and that's why 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and Park Avenue right now are an absolute mess. So trying to get around Midtown just like yesterday is not going to be easy at all.
They didn't respond to the real poetry, but they responded to the most radical act of appropriation, the vernacular, the conceptual vernacular.
And, right now, heavy transit delays. Be sure to budget extra travel time taking the LIRR out of Penn Station. Thank you.
Obama regularly copies out his speechwriters' speeches in longhand before he speaks them. He says it enables him to have a relationship with those words. He feels like now they're his own once he's transcribed them. That's the beauty of transcription, as opposed to being original. The act of transcription is personal. What you hear as a period, I hear as a semicolon, and she hears as a comma. So that transcription and rewriting something, by rewriting it, it becomes your own. And you have a very personal relationship to it and becomes your own writing. Even if you didn't write the original, you rewrote it. It's a very beautiful act. And that's why I never want to hear a student say, after they've studied with me for a semester, I've got writer's block. There can be no such thing as writer's block. There's no lack of inspiration. There's always something to transcribe. There's always something to rewrite. There's always something to reframe as a creative/uncreative act.